a friend of mine's son is here tonight, and he's reestablishing himself, and there's a lot to worry about, but really, is there anything to worry about? You get around the right people and you do what it is that you're supposed to do, that God has got you covered, and we know this by our history, is if you're alive today and you have lived anything like I have in my addiction, you should not be here. You should not be alive. And for those friends of ours whose parents are here tonight, one being Gina, I will always protect her legacy, because I can guarantee you she'd do anything to get into this sanctuary tonight. And it almost seems as if when we live a life of addiction or depression or anxiety, there's resources and tools to get victory in those areas. But will we utilize those tools and resources? One being God. But it just doesn't stop with God. God implements tools. One of the tools for an addict and alcoholic is the 12 steps. And if you do not implement the tool, then more or less you're making an unconscious decision to be okay and possibly relapse. I'll strike the word possibly. Most likely you will. And the key is, too, is I got more to worry about today than I ever have in my life. I remember what it was like is, how am I going to put gas in my car to get to my meeting? How am I going to pay my rent? Worry is always present, but you've got to give it to God and realize what it is. And I know we can do it, because when we were using or drinking or gambling, we had a lot to worry about. When is this going to catch up with me? When are they going to find out? What happens here? What happens? But in spite of all the worries of active addiction, we kept on using it. So in spite of all the worries of what you might have on your plate in your recovery, you just got to keep on recovering. And I believe that God chooses people like us because we are determined people. But our determination will fade if our desperation lessens. You've got to be more desperate as your clean time goes forward than you've ever been. And that's why I thank God for communities like this. Because the fact is that, that God is going to do what He's doing, which reminds me, Lord, I thank You for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I thank You for taking the pipes and the needles and the bottles out of my life. Lord, I thank You for a 1,000th chance at this life. Lord, I thank You for no regrets today. I thank You for a fresh start on a daily basis. Lord, I pray for those who are yet to grasp what You have. Draw them a little closer. Lord, for those that are walking in levels that they never knew existed, continue to have them rise to higher heights and deeper depths in You. Lord, I ask that You remove me from the equation tonight. And for those who are offended, continue to confront them. Lord, You are awesome and mighty. Lord, I thank You for sparing a dope fiend like me. And not just giving me my life back, but giving me a life that I never knew existed in You. And Lord, You're just getting started. In Your name we pray, amen. Amen. So, the first scripture here, it talks about Galatians 6:7. And the question I have for us, including myself, is how much are you putting into your recovery? It says in verse 7, it says, do not be misled. I see people misleading people all the time. I saw it tonight in this place. You can't give somebody something you don't have. You can't do it. If I don't have $100 and you need $100, I can't give you $100 because I ain't got $100. If you're looking for joy and you go to a person that ain't got none, they ain't going to be able to give you any joy. So what we typically do is we surround ourselves with people that don't intimidate us, that they might not even have anything that we want, but in the same breath, at least they're not going to challenge us. And what it says is do not be misled. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's the mom and dad syndrome that I see people having in recovery. I heard this recently. Well, I heard what you said, but my sponsor said something different. Well, let me be very clear with you. I didn't say it. God did. And if anything I say doesn't match this word, it's not right for me to say. So we naturally will take, as AA teaches us, the easier, softer way. Dad says no, I'm going to go to mom because I know she's going to say yes. We do it in our recovery. You know, I mean, look at the giving aspect of it, or look at getting a sponsor. I mean, you know, Serenity Village, AA, NA, they say you live and die by your sponsor. I mean, the word is gold, the suggestion is gold. But then you'll listen to your roommate that just relapse and say, well, you don't need a sponsor, and you'll go with that. You don't need to do that service work. You don't need to work on the steps. You don't need to, you know, all these things. It says, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. The world calls it karma. I'll tell you, you get out what you put in. But it didn't work that way for me in my addiction, because I put in a lot in and I didn't get much out of it except consequences. But I was willing to go all in there. So I mean, you get out what you put in. What are you willing to put in? See, that's why I believe God calls people like us, because we are all in people. We were all into our addiction. There's nothing that you could do or say to stop me from getting one more drink or drug. I did it no matter what you said. That's why God saves us and gives us a new opportunity, because if we can keep that determination and desperation. See, you got to understand, the devil trained you well, and he didn't even know he was training you for the kingdom. Put the same energy you did into your recovery as you did your addiction. That's why AA teaches us that half measures avail us nothing. I wasn't a half measure drug addict. But I'm going to half measure and half step my program? Do a smorgasbord a la carte on what I will and won't do? And if you're leading you, you're being misled. My best thinking got me here, and I'm a good thinker. I love it. A friend of mine called me and says, when you say, you know, you run everything by your mentor, what do you mean? He said, that's a great question. What does that really mean, Jeff? He said. I said, well, that's a great question. And it's, yeah, I don't have to call him. Is it okay if I go to the bathroom? I don't mean that. But there was a time in jail and in treatment I had to ask if I could go to the bathroom. I don't want to go back there. But that's where I'll be heading. I had a great conversation with Glenn before the meeting tonight. And he was right on the money. I mean, but there's two sides of me. The Bible says that, flesh and spirit. And it says you will always harvest what you plant. Well, here's what happens. We are road dogs, tough people in the streets. Nothing can stop us. We get into our recovery, and what happens with us, what happened with me, is that I couldn't handle the harvest of all the bad stuff I had planted. See, when you know, planting and harvesting doesn't just only take place with good things. Planting and harvest takes place with bad things too. And what I've seen in my own past recoveries, for those of you that don't know me, I've been through 11 treatments. I'm a chronic relapser. I'd rather have you comfort me than confront me. Until I manned up and growed up. I mean, if you want to be a man, you got to see a man and be around men. And I say that both for men and women. But for a lot of us, never knew what a man was. And that's why the Bible says when I was a child, I thought like a child. The reason I talked like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. So when I got sober, the many times that I attempted to, it's one thing that I see people do all the time. It's one thing to get sober. We've done that 100 times. But can you stay sober? So what would happen with a guy like me is I'd come in and I couldn't see my kids. I had legal consequences. I was totally broke, way in debt. Nobody trusted me. So I was harvesting everything that I had planted. And I thought it was just supposed to go away because I decided to stop using it. Everybody should throw a parade now that I'm sober. I still feel like that sometimes. I mean, when I come home from work, I expect my wife to be sitting there, you are the greatest man in the world. Great job, you went to work today. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. So when she doesn't do testify to it. I expect her to do a heel click with balloons every time I walk in the door. Yay, rah, Jeff, you were responsible today. But what happens with us guys is this: when I say us, I mean me too. When I speak on anything, I'm talking about me the majority of the time. I'm not talking about you. Because I want to talk, I need to get real with me. When you get to know yourself, you can see yourself coming. So you got to know your addict may be coming and you don't even know it. Might take your fiance to point it out. It might take your loved one to point it out. Man, you changed, brother. But if you allow that change to happen more than a couple days, you ain't going to hear a word that anybody says. But what I see with the majority of people in recovery is this. They get sober, they're harvesting what they planted. They got consequences. They got emotional trauma. They've got no hope. And they sit there and they can't deal with it. So what we do is, instead of facing it, fear, forget everything and run, or face everything and recover. Typically fear is false evidence appearing real. That's why the thing on worry is so important. You've been around this rodeo long enough. You put one foot in front of the other, do the right thing for the right reason, you're going to get a right result. But we stop doing the right thing. So we harvest in our sobriety. All of a sudden, we've been running from life, just running from life like this. We stop and we turn around and look at all the stuff that went down, and it hits us in the face, and it's too much for us. So instead of facing it and recover, we continue to run, and then God calls us back to recovery, and the very thing that we couldn't face to begin with is now compiled with 100 other consequences, and now we wish we would have just stick and stay. Because what you couldn't deal with before, what makes you think you're going to be able to deal with now with that new norm? But with God, you can still face it. And that's why it's so don't get discouraged if you're harvesting. But I love the AA promises, the harvest of recovery. It says if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, painstaking means that this is going to be painful. You're going to have to walk through the pain, not around it and not walking away from it. You have to walk through the pain about this phase of our development. What that tells me is there's different phases of your development. And depending on what phase you're in, you can be in a good phase one day and a bad phase the other day. It says, well, you will be amazed before you are halfway through. I've got a lot of amazed people in here tonight that are simply amazed what has happened in a short period of time. It says we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. That tells me what we thought was freedom and happiness wasn't freedom and happiness. Because it says new. This is something new. It's a new freedom and a new happiness. So what you thought happiness was, it wasn't. And if it was happiness, you wouldn't have left it. A new freedom and a new happiness. This is a promise of a harvest of working a program. It says we will not regret the past. I can stay here with 100% conviction, and I did a lot of dirt. I have not one single regret. Amen. Not one. It made me who I am today. And that's called the forgiveness of sins. That's called, now there's a lot of stuff that I've done that I'm not proud of, but if it hadn't gone down, I wouldn't be the person who I am today. God will always, it says, regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. You can't pretend that it didn't happen. The more you pretend that something that you did or was done unto you didn't happen, the more powerful it will be in your life. That's called running from it. So the promises of AA teach us that this is what your life will look like. Now, I mind you, when I'm talking about this, none of this stuff is external stuff. It's all internal. All the promises are emotional and spiritual. It says, we will comprehend, that means grasp, take hold of the word serenity, and we will know peace. You don't just have to know of peace. No matter how far down the scale you have gone, it doesn't matter how low it was, how bad it was. That just means that God can take you higher. We don't get into sharing war stories here. It isn't about that. The greatest place that you could have ever been is the lowest place you ever were. Because where you end is where God begins. And some of us had to go that low, and it's so important. No matter how far down the scale you have gone, we will struggling people that have victory in it. But my experience of being a crack addict is benefiting other people now. What is your experience of being an alcoholic? How is it benefiting other people? And what it says here, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. I mean, if I'm a useless, self-pity person in my recovery, I'm going to be pour me, pour me, pour me another drink. And it says it here, it says, you will lose interest in selfish things. You will become a giver, not a taker. You will gain interest in your fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. When it's not about you, you will change lives. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. There's nothing more valuable to me than working alongside a grateful person. Grateful people will do anything. You know your attitude determines your altitude. You know that we are, how can I not have an attitude of gratitude when I did dope for 20 years and I'm still breathing and not locked up? And even when I was locked up, I had to have an attitude of gratitude. Ask Dewey. Dewey had never been as happy as when he was in prison because he was free. You don't need to be incarcerated to be incarcerated. The worst type of prison is a self-made prison in between your own 2 years. That's pain. That's pain. And that's what it's saying. Your whole attitude, your outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. Why does fear of people and economic insecurity leave you? Because you're no longer self-seeking. You have interest in your fellows and not you anymore. So you're no longer afraid of people. You're no longer afraid of how you're going to get your finances back. You know too much about this. This is why this comes after the 9th step. I'm going to tear up the 12 and 12 for you.
Yes, sir.
I love the 12 and 12.
Read it.
I love when people think I'm a Bible thumper. I'll go big book to big book with 20 days a week. You want to bust out the NA with me? I'll do that too. Those books saved my life. They got me to this book. I thank God for those people that spearheaded that. I love 12-step recovery. I love it. You don't think you need it, I don't know. You tell me where you're going to find. I know where to find it in the Bible. You don't even have a Bible. It says we will intuitively know. I'm being nice. Well, whatever. I'm still being nice. You will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. I'm still not there yet. I need mentorship. I need somebody that knows how to handle a situation that I've never been in. And I'm supposed to use, see, it's not just bad. You know what's more baffling for us is being in a good situation that you don't know how to handle. It's not just bad situations. Why, I'm finally in a good situation and I don't know how to handle this. Intuitively, through the Holy Spirit, that's intuition. To handle situations that used to baffle us, we suddenly realize that God, not you, is doing for us that we could not do for ourselves. I didn't get here with a good track record of decision making. God has to do it. I mean, it's like all of a sudden you get 90 days clean and now you're going to become, this person that's calling all the shots. It's so important to hear what it's saying here. Suddenly realize, that's when the light bulb pops on, that God's doing this. I'm not doing it. I got to get closer to Him. That's why the 11 steps is sought through prayer and meditation to improve your conscious contact with God. It's always about improving your conscious contact with God. Doing for us that we could not do for us. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. Look around the room. They are being fulfilled among us. But you know what? They need to be fulfilled within you. Don't be one of those people where you're seeing everybody else with it but you. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly. That's not good when it happens too fast. slowly. When it happens slowly, you appreciate it more. Because of the talent that each and every one of you have, you know how to get back what you lost, like that. But can you keep it? Can you keep it? And it says they will always, not sometimes, materialize if you work for them. I mean, there are so many examples among us. I mean, you don't have to be a bad example anymore. Be a good example. Be a good example for, different things in your life for different people. The 12th step is another harvest of recovery. Having had a spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening means inside job. Awakening, a spiritual awakening, see, we think a spiritual awakening is getting everything back what we lost. I just had my spiritual awakening. My wife will talk to me again. They let me open up a checkbook again. Spiritual awakening. No, it says, as a result, that means that you had to do something to get the awakening. As a result of these steps, we try to carry the message to other addicts. It is, like I said when I opened tonight, you can't carry an addict. You just can carry the message. Quit trying to carry an addict. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get burnt out. Carry the message. And that when they put the word try in there, not everybody's going to listen. You're a steward and I'm a steward. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm not, if people aren't willing to listen, I'm wasting my breath. To practice these principles in all of our affairs. So that what that means is, wherever you go, you're still the same person. You're still talking, you don't go hang around these guys and drop down the Oppenheimers and talking about women like you shouldn't, or women talking about men, and you get around Pastor Duff and you're an angel. That's not practicing these principles in all your affairs. But the key word here is practice. It takes practice. I didn't get here overnight, and I can't undo what has been done overnight. You hear me say this often. You hear a lot of people say, well, I got to learn how to live. Yeah, that's true, but before you learn how to live, you better unlearn some things. Because the way you were living wasn't living. So those are some harvests of recovery. Proverbs 14:4. You have to model a strong person. Somebody that's willing to confront you and not comfort you. Somebody that's willing to tell you what you need to hear versus what you want to hear. If you're not willing to be confronted, you're going to surround yourselves with people that are going to tell you what you want to hear. And that's the difference of going from mom and dad or whoever it is for you. It's like, if you want to get an answer to one of your questions, and you want the answer to be a certain thing, go find the right person to answer that question. You'll seek them out. You'll seek them out. And what it says here is so important. Without oxen, the stable stays clean. Your recovery is going to be messy. You think your addiction was messy. No. Your recovery is going to be messy too. That means you're working it. Those who go to treatment, I go to treatment centers and talk, oh, this is awesome. Why is treatment awesome? It shouldn't be awesome. That just means you're not working on yourself. It's meant to be messy. Otherwise, you're just doing time. You're just doing time. You need a strong ox for a large heart. Somebody that's consistent, that lives on principles, not feelings. You can feel any way you want, but you can only act a certain way. That's principles versus personalities even. But what it's saying here now in Hebrews 12:11, you have to have discipline in order to be trained. No discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. I often tell people, call me every day. It lasts 3 days. And then they tell me the reason I didn't call you because you're busy. Why would I tell you to call me? See, when you're being trained, you find out how weak you really are. Like I've been saying on Sundays, I got a nutritionist. I am weak. Every night, like candy calls my name. It's like to force me to drink 6 bottles of water a day is like coming to the killing me. When I'm used to drinking 12 Diet Cokes a day. I'm weak. But at least I know I'm weak. And at least I know I got something to shoot for. See, I mean, weak is not bad. I mean, you know what would be more of a disservice thinking you're strong when you are weak. Because when you think you got it, you just missed it. Galatians says, be careful when you think you're standing firm, that you don't fall. When did the majority of us relapse? When we think we have it all together. When we stop working the program. And that's what it's saying here. So it's not going to be always enjoyable. But afterwards, but a lot of us don't stick around for the afterwards. There's a peaceful harvest of right living. See, a lot of us think we only have an addiction. We've got living problems. I was 35 years old and all I had was in a plastic bag. That's a living problem. I had a coping problem. Or perspective problem. And I was raised right. But it says, you got to understand right living. You need somebody to teach you what right living is. For those who've been trained in this way. Hosea 10:12. You have to go all in to soften your heart. A hard heart equals a hard life. And I know what happened to you. I know what you did. I did the same things. It makes your heart hard. It makes you not want to trust people. It's not easy. It's going to get messy these next 12 weeks. Take off the mask that I'm okay when you're the farthest thing from it. You are ready to break wide at any moment. You've got barricades around you, keeping everybody out, but you fail to recognize that you're in your own self-made prison. And you wonder why you're lonely and no one's paying attention with you. But every time they come up to engage with you, every time they ask you to do something, you don't do it. It's so important that we understand, plant the good seeds of righteousness. Do the right thing for the right reason to get the right result. But here's what happens with us. We get enough right results and we quit doing the right thing. And it was the right thing that got us the right results, but now we're going to do it our way. And you will harvest a crop of love, the Bible says. That's why we use and drink and gamble and have all these other things, because we don't know what love is. Once you learn how to love yourself, you'll learn how to love other people. Plow up the hard ground of your hearts. Now is the time. See, some of us have relapsed so many times that we're not even afraid to go out there anymore. You think you get a comeback card every time. Gina didn't get a comeback card. But since you did it so many times, it's like, I've relapsed and come back to my program so many times. It ain't nothing to me anymore. That's what all I do. I'm afraid of going. I'm afraid of alcohol. You don't want to be one of those people like, yeah, it ain't going to be no thing. I'll come back. They'll all love me still. Yeah, we will. You still don't love yourself. You're still punishing yourself. You can see what we see. You can see what God sees. You'd live your life differently. If you'd allow yourself to be trained and disciplined and don't take correction for rejection. Said it last week, sometimes the word no is the best word you can hear. But because we never heard no, or we heard no too many times growing up, the idea of the word no means failure. You tell me no, that means I'm failing. It doesn't mean you're failing. No is the most anointed word there is. Jesus went to God and he said, take this from me. He said, no, you need to walk through this. You need to walk through it too. Not run through it, not skip through it. You need to walk through the valley of pain to get better. It ain't easy, but doing dope wasn't easy either. You can do it. If God didn't think you could do it, he would have never brought you here. He doesn't bring limps here. He brings world changers here.
That's right.
But world changers need to be trained. And that's what it's saying. For now is the time to seek the Lord, that he may come. Quit pushing God out of your life and invite him back in, just like you did when you couldn't breathe because you're ready to overdose. Just like you did before the judge in tonight. It says in Galatians 2:20, the steps remove the old and ignite the new. My old self has been crucified with Christ, it says. How does your old self get crucified? I'll tell you. You're going to learn it in the next 12 weeks. Your old self gets crucified by doing steps 1 through 3. In step 3, your self gets crucified by making the decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. You made a decision, and so did I, to turn my will and my life over to the care of crack, as I understood crack. To alcohol, to drugs. You made it, I made it. But how do you crucify your old self? You do a step 3. You got to do 1 and 2 before that. Quit working the steps out of order. And then you got to look at your fears and your resentments and your sexual conduct. And you got to confess that in step 5. Then you got to look at your lack of character and the defects that are surrounding it. And you got to become entirely ready to have God remove them. You got to be so sick of you that you're ready for God to take this out of you. Then you have to humbly ask Him to remove your shortcomings. Then you have to look at your stuff before you make your amends. It doesn't matter how they react to your revenge. It's about you cleaning your side of the street. And don't go ahead and make your list and go on with step 9. Run it by your sponsor, because you might want to say you're sorry to somebody with some hidden motives. Just to get back in the game with them. And that's what we're going to be going through in these next 12 weeks, and it's going to be powerful. But it says, my old self, you got to change one thing, that's everything. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting the Son of God. See, we all have trust issues. The reason why you have trust issues is for one reason only. You don't trust anybody because you don't trust yourself. It all starts and ends with you. I still struggle with that. And it says right here, by trusting the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. Don't think the people that are sent to help you are your enemies. Thank God for them that they would be willing to actually have a conversation with you. When I got here, they weren't rolling out the red carpets. They were locking their doors. Be grateful that the people are willing to put together a study or present a step or sponsor you. Those people are God sent to you. And it says, gave Himself for me, Jeremiah 8:20. People who missed it are not doing well. There's people sitting in jail, in treatment, reflecting on another missed opportunity. And you don't know if that last missed opportunity will be done. You don't know. We all know this. Every one of us has got another relapse in us. But do you have another recovery? It was not easy to get back. But because we do it so much, it's nothing to us. I know. Relapse, get back on my feet. Relapse, get back on my feet. Relapse, get back on my feet. The whole time I'm regressing in my life. And I ain't getting any younger. They told me you pick up where you left off, and worse, let me tell you something. Last time I relapsed, those streets have changed. People have changed. And that life changed me. It made my heart hard. It made me not trust anybody. It made my loved ones in fear when I walked in the room if this would be the last time they ever would see me. It says, when the harvest is finished, the summer is gone, the people cry out, yet we are not saved. You don't want to be one of those people. Matthew 13:23, a great example of harvest. The seed fell on good soil. That means when you went down, it's the best thing that ever happened to you. When you fell, you got planted. I was talking to a brother in here, and I never met. He came here. He came from Hazelton. He was trying to get established financially. We worked with him. And he finally got his first paycheck, and he sat out on the porch. And he knew he got paid, but he wasn't ready to pay the rent yet. He was ready to bust wide. We had let him stay for free. He got the money. What was he going to do? That night I was at the house meeting with him, and he walked in from the porch and confessed what he was thinking about doing. Today he sits here for well over a year clean, volunteers at the church, tithes significant amount every Sunday. He's changed. He ain't a taker no more. But that decision on the porch could have changed his destiny. I look at my 21-year-old daughter in the first row. Yeah, she ain't got it all together. We all know that. But let me tell you something about her, for whoever's in their 20s. She works full time. She pays her own bills. She bought her own car. And she tithes 10%. Good soil. Good soil. And I'm not even talking about tithing, so don't start tripping. But if she can do it,
yes, sir. Come on.
She's got every excuse in the world not to do it.
That's right.
Doesn't know where dad is. I'm her dad. Had to grow up with an addict mother for the majority of her life. She's got the excuse, but that excuse ain't got her.
That's right.
You want to know what a proud dad looks like? I'm proud of her for working full time. I'm proud of her, but I'm proud of what she does for those kids that she nannies. She's unbelievable. But I'm proud when I see her giving God his portion. That's proud. That's proud. And what it says here in 1 Corinthians 9 and 10, what God does for others, he will do for you. Wasn't he actually speaking to us? Yes, it was written for us. This is for you. Otherwise, God wouldn't have brought you here. The fact that you might not think it's for you, that's okay. Just don't run. You'll be like the guy who was ready to run on the porch. And that guy is Will Clyburn. Let's give him a hand. See, what would have happened if we would have ran? None of us would have been blessed by it. I could go to that hope. There's several guys over there. I'd say the same thing about it. The harvest is plentiful. Because I love it when people come up to me and say, you know, your lesson tonight, it's like you were speaking right to me. I said, well, I wasn't following you around today. God was. And it's speaking right to me too. I'm probably worse off than any of you. But I'm real with myself today. I ain't got it together. I'm one decision away from mass destruction. But I'm freer than I've ever been because of Jesus Christ. It's the bottom line. But I'm not too heavenly minded that I'm no earthly good. I'm walking on the same ground you are, in the same soil, with the same results. It's a choice. It's a choice. If you want to compare your consequences to mine, I'll do it any day from my addiction. Financial, legal, mental, family. It was all there. Professional, laughing stuff. You hear about that Jeff? Oh, he's a crackhead. I wonder what he did when he was in our company. Having to live with all that stuff. God took care of all of it. I walked tall. My head held high. Looking you right in the eye. I ain't looking down when I talk to you no more. I got no regrets. And that's what God has for you guys. Galatians, it says right here, you know, it's so important you guys to grasp this, that you can have a share in the harvest. Galatians 5:22-24. Surround yourselves with submitted and committed people. But this is what happens when you live God's way. He brings gifts into your lives. All you guys over here, it's happening for you. But what do you do then? Much the same way the fruit appears in the orchard. Like affection for others. Well, that's so new to me. All I usually do is care about myself. I didn't even do a very good job of caring for myself. Here I sit with treatment. But God will bring you there like affection for others. Exuberance about life and serenity. It doesn't matter where I've been. What matters is where I'm going. My past will no longer dictate my future. I am a child of God. I'm coming out better than I went in. He has plans for my life. He didn't save me from that dope fiend for no reason. I'm going after the gusto this time. You're going to hear about God through my lips. Exuberant, excited, just like when I got my kayak. Now I got my God. It's different. It's different. Now you would have thought I won the gold medal when I had my piece. A little swag in my step. Then 2 hours later, I was like this. Exuberant life. Get excited that God loves you, and He's got a plan for you, and He's not going to lose His reputation over you. He called you because He loves you, and He's got a miraculous plan for you. But what needs to be crucified? It says we develop willingness to stick with the thing. I always quit. I'm a strong starter. This time I'm sticking with it. A sense of compassion from the heart. I actually care about myself and other people. A conviction. I want to be around convicted people. That basic holiness permeates things in people. We find ourselves involved with loyal commitment, stick-to-it type of guy. Not needing to force our way in life. I'm not going to manipulate anything else. I'm not getting ahead of God anymore. I used to go home after treatment and make up for lost time and try to be super dad. Fall flat on my face. No more forcing my way through this life. Able to marshal and direct your energies wisely. Get around people that are hungry and stay around those people. Those who are not ready for this, love them anyways, but do not spend much time with them. The quicker they can go out and come back, the better. I know that's harsh, but it's truth. Luke 10:2, it works if you work it. These were the final instructions. You have to be instructed. The harvest is great, but the workers are few. People, not many people make it. So pray that the Lord who is in charge of the harvest, ask Him to send more workers into the field. Well, He's doing that right now, Serenity Village, and you're part of that we. This we is what will keep us sober. This we is what will keep us free. This we is why they're calling in other countries to set up Serenity Village. This we is why they're calling, because of the we in this program, the God in this program. You've been called to the we. But if you're not ready for the we love you, we're here for you, but I'm here to tell you, God may need your bed. Because I got too many champions in the house tonight that get affected by people who are not ready. And you don't want to waste anybody's time. But this is your time. Comes to you in group, I'd rather not talk tonight. What? You mean I just spent 2 hours preparing for this message? I'd rather not. I would rather not teach or buy a house or sacrifice time. What if I said, I'd rather just spend time with my family? Screw all of you! What if I did that? What would happen with you? I'd rather not. I'd rather not have you here. Because you just affected some other guy who had a chance of pulling out of the bad attitude. Now he's going to stay in there because your bad attitude is contagious. And misery doesn't love company, it demands it. We'll take a 10-minute break.